interesting last few years. I wanted to share some downloads. I don't necessarily have any angel numbers to talk about, but I definitely have a lot of downloads. With that, please only take what fits, let the rest sit, and let it marinate for those who may need it. Do know this message is timeless, so you could be encountering this 100 years from now and figuring out a piece of history that may have been stifled. Not only that, but I'm going to bring a lot of neutral viewpoints because I myself am just, a very neutral individual, and I don't really operate, too often out of extremes just due to, my own self-awareness of those polarities. But I understand that it is very human to operate out of extremes. But I'm also going to say I realize that, these things I'm going to share with you, they're not necessarily, everybody's favorite, despite how nuanced it may be. And when I say nuance, it's that, two things can be true at once, and I think we all need a lot more nuance. Nonetheless, this may not resonate with everybody, and that is totally okay. This is just, for those who do resonate with this, and, those who may want, that little bit of comfort. Please know that when I do get into tarot and whatnot, energy is fluid, so he could be a she could be a he. I could pull a King of Swords and be talking about your Aunt Marjorie. It doesn't matter. Alright, let's get into it. So, the downloads I got. You've decided it is definitely time to split. So that decision itself is bringing you and someone closer together than, more so than ever. Especially as you weather this storm together. I feel like the both of you are, or even if this is you and a group, I feel like you are understanding what true intimacy looks like and what performative intimacy looks like, and what real love can look like, and what real healing can look like, and what performative means of those actions can also look like. Those who truly love you are your support system at this time, so please definitely lean on them. Do not go out of your way to do more than that right now, because I don't think anyone really expects that of you. Connect with water. For some of you, water is your safe space to cleanse and regroup, so definitely do your best to reconnect. Just give yourself some extra self-care, but at the same time, as we've been saying, please do not go into full-on hermit mode. I, just like all of you, am fully aware that this is, not what you signed up for, but we're here, and we have voices. Another download I got for y'all in particular is that you needed to let go of this energy in order to clear a financial restraint. Literally, when you depart from this individual, this group, this company, watch how your view of your finances changes when you're away from this controlling energy. I got, Emperor Hierophant in reverse energy. I feel like there is also this massive collective shift, and this is like on a global scale, right? As our leaders appoint more scapegoats, this, honestly, to me, everything is starting to kind of feel like Operation Northwoods, in which they tried to they made a plan to pretty much like pit us against each other and to frame Cuba along the way. But Operation Northwoods 1962, like, it feels like they escape accountability much like those individuals did. And we also have individuals, with the emotional quotient of like a 5 to 10-year-old. So it feels like we have, these toddlers who, are not only leading us, but we also have other toddlers in these parasocial relationships with these leaders. And so these are just like little echo chambers of power. What I've noticed is that, they feel extremely threatened anytime a person bothers to name any sort of hypocrisy. All of us collectively should question, and I feel like this should, be some shadow work that we all work on. All of us collectively should question how society treats suffering on a grand scale. Who is granted empathy and why? And how public figures are held accountable. To vaguely expand on what Operation Northwoods was, again, that was, an idea that was proposed in 1962, and this was brought on by America's top military leaders at the time. So this was the U.S. military and the Department of Defense. This plan was essentially devised to create propaganda against Cuba and Fidel Castro, but internally, meaning the propaganda was created, or was going to be created, by these government officials in order to get us to rally against one another and to blame Cuba, even though Cuba wasn't doing anything. So this was to essentially scare Americans into thinking there were terrorists from Cuba attacking America. When in reality, the plan was to create such an uprising, the citizens of America would be at war with each other, and by default, with themselves. This internal, some may even say like a civil war, again, was going to be used to create propaganda in order to start a war with Cuba. And in order to garner support fully from Americans while doing that. This plan was immediately rejected when it reached John F. Kennedy, who was, greatly offended and disturbed and even terrified on behalf of both Cuba and America. So he immediately rejected the plan, okay? It was the rejection the Department of Defense faced. I mean, they wanted to bomb their own country and scapegoat Cuba. Like, I don't know what they expected. But it was the rejection the Department of Defense and CIA faced from JFK that made him grow increasingly unpopular. Now remember, this plan was devised in 1962. This plan, his rejection, made him grow increasingly unpopular, and propaganda was created in order to continuously make him look unfavorable. It was consistently noted and planted, mind you, by the Department of Defense within our media that, quote-unquote, Kennedy was getting too soft on Cuba. So essentially, when JFK rejected authoritarian practices, he was labeled as soft. JFK was assassinated in 1963. This plan was devised in 1962. It was rejected, and JFK was assassinated in November of 1963. This is like hefty stuff to talk about, y'all. I'm not really like into conspiracies or anything, to be honest, but this was a real plan, and this has been disclosed to the public, and you can look it up. It was Operation Northwoods. Look at what Trump is doing against individuals who are literally either, just trying to make it or survive, or are placating the exact environment that was created to force them to act out like that. Look at what he is doing against individuals who literally are practicing freedom of speech, who may not be celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, okay? This is not to, necessarily uphold those individuals, okay? Because we should still have the nuance. But also, just because, they choose not to celebrate his death, they also do not have to celebrate his life. As a quote-unquote patriot, especially. It feels like obedience is mandatory right now, and fear is being used as a tool, as a weapon. Trump is consistently deploying the military into our own cities to, quote-unquote, crack down on violence and crime, without addressing the real root causes such as poverty and scarcity. We are consistently being pit against one another, and the blame for that never falls on those who are actually the perpetrators. I feel like a lot of you are facing heavy scrutiny right now. And this could even be within, your own family. Like, people are screenshotting shit and, getting people fired, and legit, like, it feels like emotional blackmail, control, and a witch hunt. And we are going to talk about the hypocrisy of that particular projection, because that was weaponized against us as well. We'll talk about that more. But those who are not necessarily celebrating, nor, really much of anything, but rather critiquing someone's life, that's being silenced right now. Not only that, but we are consistently being pit against one another. And the blame for that never seems to fall on those who are actually the perpetrators. This is the witch hunt. This is Trump and MAGA. But it's also, the Democratic Party isn't necessarily innocent either. There's just a lot going on and a lot to unpack. Again, we are seeing selective empathy or tribal empathy. Okay, so if you don't participate on top of that, you're labeled as a monster. Even though, Charlie Kirk clearly stated, I can't stand the word, quote-unquote, empathy. Actually, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that it does a lot of damage. That's what he said. I feel that any individuals, who feel personally victimized by individuals such as Charlie Kirk, they have a right to speak. Here's another Charlie Kirk quote, and this is in regards to George Floyd. This guy was a scumbag. Now, does that mean he deserves to die? That's two totally different things. Of course not. As I said, many are not celebrating the life of Kirk, but they are critiquing it. Many are not celebrating his death either, which isn't necessarily a lack of empathy for, for the guy, nor making anyone monstrous. They're human. And empathy is not performative. It's a real core feeling. Empathy is a term that has been in the Oxford Dictionary. Okay? New Age did not start in 1909, but empathy made its way into the Oxford Dictionary that year. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like New Age is fairly New Age. Nonetheless, some other news. Kirk will be receiving our nation's formerly highest honor from Trump, posthumously a Medal of Freedom. He may also receive his own holiday known as National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk. This could be scheduled annually for October 14th, which was his birthday. Here's another quote, and this is from Charlie Kirk. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. In my many years of going to therapy, as well as the many years of studying psychology myself, I have learned that compassion for the abuser comes later, if at all. Forgiveness, I don't even really talk about forgiveness. I'm not the one that you would want to talk about forgiveness with. I will say this though. While I can empathize with the loss of a loved one, and I can definitely empathize with the grief from losing someone who, you might have had a parasocial relationship with. I was a kid once. I really liked a lot of celebrities when I was younger. Like, it seems to be the norm, especially with how isolated people have become. But anyway, I feel like many did have a parasocial relationship, not only with Kirk, but with the leaders of our nation right now in general. Even so, Charlie Kirk himself would rather you not empathize, as that term shouldn't exist in his opinion. In fact, he would probably have mocked you for even attempting to put his name in the same breath as empathy without any sort of contempt. Okay? So the crux of hypocrisy is plain as day. The rhetoric around the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, right, is consistently weaponized to justify extreme measures, as well as the First Amendment, which is, freedom of speech, assembly, and the right to protest. But if it doesn't suit their agenda, their rhetoric, it's either dismissed or, if it's not an echo chamber for the far right or the alternative left, it could be heavily suppressed or oppressed, especially if it challenges those in power. It kind of boggles my mind how we don't see the Machiavellianism. And I challenge a lot of people to do some heavy research in regards to that. But feels like a heavy period right now in which we are realizing how many people participate in Machiavellianism. The very same leaders and supporters who claim a quote-unquote constitutional right to bear arms often fear collective organization and speech because it threatens their narrative of power. We are seeing our military deployed on its own citizens. These are militarized responses to protests, especially in marginalized communities. Memphis. That sends this authoritarian message to the people. Dissent has consequences. Even though these consequences are literally violating the First Amendment, people are losing their livelihoods because of lack of empathy, which has consistently been displayed by the far right and has even been questioned. And now it is being weaponized to better suit their agenda. I feel the public, especially those who, may be in a higher position, such as like government officials or, those who may wear some sort of uniform of state, they're being shamed and emotionally blackmailed into, quote-unquote, respecting authority. This is abuse, guys. This is abuse of power that we are literally seeing. Like, that's the irony here. The people loudly defending their rights in the beginning of all of this were literally overlooking and actively suppressing others' rights. Our constitutional protection feels more like political theater than universal principles, y'all. This is exactly what divide and conquer looks like. People are being forced to pick a side or risk losing everything. Meanwhile, these structures enforcing control, aka our government, corporations, military, law enforcement, they remain largely unaccountable and unchecked as we, the people, spend our energy fighting one another and trying to hunt for the next scapegoat or the next witch hunt, whichever phrasing you prefer, because there's a lot of parroting out there. Basically, we are seeing submit to authority and conform to our beliefs or face the consequences. What we are also going to see as this continues, society is crumbling, solidarity is imploding. However, our actual problems, y'all, like poverty, healthcare, education, climate, civil liberties, these could all remain unresolved due to the misdirected and heavily misguided attention and energy. This is all literally just a singular symptom of power that requires maintenance and upkeep through division and fear, while operating under the guise of justice and fairness. Just a little fun thing for y'all. Little fun quote for y'all from Vance, Mr. J.D. Vance. The First Amendment protects a lot of very ugly speech, but if you celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, you should not be protected from being fired for being an ugly person. Again, that was J.D. Vance. Even so, I did notice that this last February, a federal employee resigned due to social media posts that contained elements of eugenics and racism. Vance in particular advocated for this individual to be rehired. And I quote, Vance said, "I obviously disagree with some of Elez's posts, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life. We shouldn't reward journalists who try to destroy people, ever. So I say bring him back. If he's a bad dude or a terrible member of the team, fire him for that. Now, in terms of Ilez's posts, which, are now deleted. And mind you, Ilez was a pseudonym. These were on X, formerly known as Twitter. Here are 3 of the posts. First post. Just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. Second post. You could not pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity. Third post. Normalize Indian hate. This was all under the account at Marco Ilez, now at NULLPTR on X. The account Marco Ilez also made note to say that they were an employee at SpaceX and Starlink. It is noted by Musk that Ilez was hired specifically for what Musk said in his own words, dismantling the radical left shadow government. Anyone who questioned the rehire was personally attacked by J.D. Vance with accusations of quote-unquote, and here's the hypocrisy, quote-unquote, emotional blackmail pretending to be concerned. Vance has also fired off at European allies with accusations of censorship, specifically targeting Germany for calling out the AfD, which is a political party known to uphold Nazi traditions. People choose to be blind. Humans are going to do what they feel is best in order to survive. And I'm realizing that not everybody is equipped with the same empathy. There is that tribal empathy where if you are not like me, I do not empathize with you. And we are seeing that clear as day over and over and over again. How humans do display selective empathy, tribal empathy. This isn't to say that, how about I just read my post to you? Because this is being screenshot and used against me too. And it was actually screenshot by a family member to be used against me. So I would love to go ahead and read that to you. Let's see. I screenshot it so that I knew exactly what I said too. So my post says, I hate to burst the bubble here, but Charlie Kirk was definitely not the second coming of Jesus, nor some kind of apostle. In fact, y'all, I'm pretty sure this would be considered idolatry in terms of Christianity. But anyway, I wish murder wasn't such a normalized part of society. I firmly believe death is too swift and too forgiving, and I would love to see actual justice for those who deserve it. But I am terrified of how murder is sensationalized, and even Charlie Kirk's slaughter is being popularized by the far left and critiqued by the far right, being popularized by the far right and critiqued by the far left that still craves justice. Y'all, if you don't identify with either, I'm sure you're probably feeling the heat of the pressure cooker / crabs in a barrel mentality too. Again, Charlie Kirk was not Jesus, Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Those were individuals who risked everything to fight for human rights. And Jesus is debatable by many. What's happening now? We are seeing individuals use scriptures to justify brutality. Yes, including Charlie Kirk, and that's if they can even quote the scripture. They are manipulating people through claims of righteousness and claiming superiority through white supremacist beliefs. This is nothing like the work of those who are truly trying to salvage humanity. Edit. Neither is Luigi Mangione a hero. Stop sensationalizing murder. I saw a video of some chick with a quote-unquote bloodied handprint over her face, which was symbolic of refusing to remain silent for those within indigenous cultures. So obviously rich history is behind this. She was culturally appropriating that very same symbol and saying Charlie Kirk will not be silenced. She was Caucasian. If this doesn't reek of privilege, I don't know what does. So, me realizing the infamy that is being pedestaled and critiquing it and criticizing it, you know, this individual might even get their own holiday as if they're like, you know, Rosa Parks or something. Even Rosa Parks, you know, doesn't have her own holiday. But what I'm trying to say is he wasn't some sort of patriot. He, in my eyes, is a symbol of someone who died for the very things they were preaching about. And personally, I do not believe in nobility or anything like that from, you know, martyrdom. If he was supporting humanity as a whole rather than continuously trying to divide, I feel it would be different, and he would have obviously gained, you know, a lot more empathy from people, if not sympathy. You know, he loved sympathy. He raved on about how it should replace empathy. Which is interesting because, you know, sympathy is feeling sorry for a person. Whereas empathy is feeling through it with that person. So, pedestaling martyrdom as opposed to very real qualities of humanity. And sympathy is a real quality too. Of course, we feel sorry for people. But empathy is just as important. And sympathy and empathy are very different, and sympathy does not equal empathy, nor does it cancel it out. Nor does it distract from the fact that it is very apparent that tribal empathy, selective empathy, is being displayed because these individuals feel that they need to do so in order to survive the way they want. And that's just the thing. That's where the privilege comes in. They have the privilege to disregard any systematic oppression because it has not affected them. Because they could not empathize with it. Any bouts of racism or any sort of situation that could cause systematic harm has consistently been overlooked. And now empathy is being weaponized. And let me go ahead and open that back up. Let's pull both these quotes together so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. Musa. I think it was over here, actually. So, right now, it literally feels like the public, if you do not follow this agenda, the public is being shamed and emotionally blackmailed, and some are even being blackmailed with their jobs, their livelihoods, their places of residence, into quote-unquote respecting authority. Like, this is abuse. This is abuse of power. Okay, and this is based off of social media posts, right? The irony. The people defending their rights, their constitutional rights. However, this last February, a federal employee who was posting very racist and anti-Semitic things and just nasty shit. He was willing to stand up for this employee and elect that he be rehired. In fact, you know, accusing anybody who questioned it of emotional blackmail pretending to be concerned. If this isn't projection, I don't know what is. Like, I really do wish, you know, if not to help others, to help, you know, yourselves, I wish more people would really, really study psychology and, you know, study different methods of healing. Again, if not for other people, at least for yourself. Because this is not okay. Even so, let's go ahead and get into tarot. I cloak myself in a chiffon of pink. I ask my spirit guides, ancestors, deities, angels, and Mother Nature ground me in a protective glimmer, so I may think, and so that I may shimmer. I am your oracle of the light, your seer in the dark. Please grant me that creative spark, and allow me to bask in your divine essence through this confusion and stark. I am you and you are me. Voice through me these messages you wish to speak, and blessed be. And so it be like that. I am going to start with the Villains Tarot deck. Excuse me. This is written by Minerva Siegel and illustrated by Ellie Goldwyn. Let's see what we get here. Alright. I feel like this is just a really hefty topic right now because so many people are, and I know it's not just, you know, government officials. You know, I'm seeing it everywhere. People are literally losing their jobs because, you know, they have an opinion on someone who violated their rights and oppressed them even further and tried to make them feel crazy for something that was quite obviously and even toted and doted on by J.D. Vance. Racism. They do not have to empathize with that individual. Who that is not racist could empathize with an individual such as that? Who that is not misogynistic, violent in nature, and yet they consistently are saying they want to end the violence? Why do you think that violence is being used against us? Why do you think the military is being deployed in all of these marginalized communities that are protesting? Oh my gosh. Okay, crowning thoughts, energy. Like we said, we felt that reverse emperor, reverse Hierophant, reverse King of Swords energy, while for the crowning energy, we got 10 of Swords, 5 of Swords in reverse, and the Hierophant. Let's go ahead and go for our main energy. Two of Swords. We need to get a couple more. Page of Swords. 4 of Wands and 10 of Coins. Those came out together. All right. So those downloads got pretty, you know, on pretty much on a mass scale. We're going to reel it back in a little bit, kind of focus on y'all, because I know there's personal stuff going on too. Okay. All right. So, for again the crowning energy or crowning thoughts. Crowning thoughts, 10 of Swords, 5 of Swords reverse, and the Hierophant. We also have, for main energy, the 2 of Swords, the Page of Swords, the 4 of Wands, and the 10 of Coins. For suppressed and oppressed energy, we have the Moon, we have the 6 of Wands, and we have the 6 of Cups. For overall energy, we have the Ace of Coins, we have the 9 of Wands reverse, we have the Wheel of Fortune reverse, and we have the 5 of Coins reverse. Just for shits and giggles, let me go ahead and, because I knew the Hierophant was coming out, but let's go ahead and clarify it here. In this instance, tell me about the Hierophant. I'm going to use my Gypsy Witch fortune telling deck. The Mouse. And the Stork. Okay. Yeah, I feel like this is definitely you regaining your control from someone who had control over you. You are essentially ready to take this betrayal with the 10 of Swords, flip it and reverse it with the 5 of Swords. You're laying down your own arms because you're tired. You don't, you're also wondering, like, I don't know if y'all have ever seen the Help, but towards the end, when Aibileen was being framed, she looked to Hilly and she asked her, "Miss Hilly, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired?" And what she was referring to was how much energy she would put into scamming and scheming and making herself look like something she totally was not. If you were white, and, especially if you were a man, Hilly would be sweet as a Georgia peach to you. But if you were black, or brown, or someone who did not fit what she felt should be on a job application or a W-2, unless it was to be a nanny, a cook, or a maid, or all of the above. Unless you fit that description of white, blue-eyed, bushy-tailed, she was not going to be nice to you. In fact, she would invoke as much cruelty as she could. And she would ensure, even if, you know, even if you weren't of color, even if you were just someone on her shit list, she was so miserable that she would do everything in her power to create a gang of individuals against you. That's who Hilly was. That is not power. That's control. But nonetheless, you're tired. And, you know, you are accepting things for what they are. With the Two of Swords here and, you know, the Page of Swords, I feel like, you know, the realization that, you know, humans are going to human, but also realizing that despite them trying to survive, there are things that are inherently wrong that need to be addressed and can no longer be upheld. There are individuals who need to be held accountable, and this could be in your personal life, or this could be on an extrapolar level. Okay, this could be in terms of, like, you know, your work life, or, you know, friends, whatever. Just know, with the Four of Wands and the Ten of Coins here, in the end, you are going to be okay. We also have the Ace of Coins out here. Like, I feel like whoever you are severing from, we have the Wheel of Fortune in reverse and the Five of Coins in reverse for some of the overall energy. They are trying to make it seem like if you split, like, that's it. You're donezo. You're fucked. And not necessarily in the sense that, you know, the relationship is over, or the friendship is over, or the family connection is over, but rather they're saying, like, you're finito. Like, you know, you're not going to be, you know, you're not going to do well. But in reality, you are getting the Four of Wands and the Ten of Coins. You are getting that stability and then some. Like, all of the trouble you have had with the Nine of Wands in reverse and the Ace of Coins, that you did not have to go through, that they were consistently putting you through. And I'm wondering, aren't they tired too? Because I know you're tired. The Nine of Wands in reverse, you're fucking tired. I know. I mean, I was saying the last reading, I was surprised it wasn't out there. You're tired. You're getting stability and then some for your troubles. Meanwhile, this person's luck is running out with the Wheel of Fortune in reverse and the Five of Coins. If this is a narcissist and they place high value in material things such as their, you know, their cars and trucks, their home, their, just their perceived image, that is going to fall apart. Just like Hilly. Their perceived image is going to fall apart. And I'm not saying you have to go as far as Minnie with the chocolate pie to do this. No, 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 no. This is on behalf of the divine. Now, in terms of clarification for the Hierophant, we had gotten 29, the mouse. The mouse denotes loss by theft. Nearby, it denotes recovery after great difficulty. But distance, the loss will be irretrievable. We also got number 21, the stork. The stork denotes change of residence for the better, sooner or later, according to the distance from which it lies from the person. Whoever you're fucking dealing with, this, you know, rat mouse energy, to them, welcome to the year of the snake, because the year of the Tower, I'd like to say, because all of the truths are coming to light. All of the snakes in the garden are not only shedding their skin, but showing their true colors, and we are registering those true colors. You are going to be okay, I promise. With the moon here, and this is oppressed or suppressed energy, right? We have the moon, the Six of Wands, and the Six of Cups. This is kind of like an internal question you can ask yourself. Okay, what does success mean to you? What does intimacy mean to you? Where do those bridge? This could be in family, this could be in terms of romance. What are you willing to accept, and what are you willing to not accept? What do you deserve and what do you not deserve in terms of love? I want you, especially if this is, you know, a family member or a friend, I want you to reflect on the past and how this person has treated both your wins and your shortcomings. Did they consistently kick you while you were down? And create situations to push you further down, to drown you, and then mock you after you were being drowned? I feel like there is a lot of hidden emotion and a lot of confusion here to unpack, especially with the Six of Cups, because I also feel, you know, there's a lot of, I heard authority behind titles. So like maybe this is like a patriarch or a matriarch, or maybe, you know, this is like, I don't know, like the leader of your friend group or whatever, or someone in alpha female, alpha male mentality. Think of how often they would go out of their way to torment you, and they did that to make themselves feel better. Think of how many times they had to humiliate you, quote unquote, humble you. This person is very passive aggressive for the most part, which is why I can't necessarily pinpoint the energy. This group, this person is very passive aggressive though, but I do see that like they are very emotionally unstable, and the actual aggression leaks out every now and then. But it's still not completely obvious to everybody around. But it will be. And you changing residence, or, you know, going to a new job, or quitting, or just departing and cutting the cord altogether, is you becoming your own Hierophant, is you taking control of your life, is you creating the traditions, the values, the morals, the guidance that you wish you had while suffering from this situation, or these situations plural, because it's the Ten of Swords here. Really take some time to stop and reflect on what you've learned during this journey, and all I can say is I hope you're ready for your next chapter, because it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to, I sense that, like, some of y'all are, like, with the Ten of Coins here, the Ace of Coins, the Four of Wands, the Six of Wands out here. Like, I know this feels like a major betrayal and a major loss, but holy fuck, you are definitely being repaid by the divine for what happened. You are definitely, with, you know, after that rat fucked with you, after that mouse. It denotes recovery after great difficulty and loss. Like, you are going to be okay. The stork denotes change of residence for the better, sooner or later. Like, this was inevitable. This cycle was just going to keep repeating with the Wheel of Fortune here in reverse. And it would have just, with the Five of Coins in reverse, gotten worse and worse and worse. You know, this person could have threatened you with your job. They could have threatened you with, I feel like the financial ties are heavy again. So they could have threatened you with a vehicle. You know, maybe they are a co-signer on a vehicle or a house. So they could have threatened you with your place of residence. They could have threatened you with, you know, if this is a parent, they could have been like, I put a roof over your head. I fed you. I clothed you. Shit like that, my friends. Like, no, that's not okay. That's not okay. Again, you are becoming the Hierophant. You are taking the reins of your own life. And I know it hurts, and I know the betrayal is heavy. And I know that this time can be especially confusing, especially if loved ones or, you know, you are financially trapped, you know, and that comes into play. So if those sorts of situations come into play, I totally understand. I feel called to read from the Hierophant, so I'm going to pull that up. And then I'll probably break away, because I'm exhausted. Where are you at, Hierophant? Let's see, number 5. Hide him from me. Right here. Okay. The Hierophant. Structure, law, and order, and community are the main themes of the Hierophant tarot card. Dawn Bellwether both represents and exploits those themes as an ambitious sheep who moves up Zootopia's government hierarchy to promote her own agenda. The Hierophant advises you, this is when it's upright. The Hierophant advises you that now isn't the time for radical ideas and rebellion. Instead, place your trust in tried and true methods and time-honored tradition. While there's a time and place for individualism, nonconformity, and rebellion, the Hierophant card is a sign that respecting convention will get you further than going your own way. I feel like you're not necessarily like trying to, you know, uphold these wild traditions. In fact, you yourself are very traditional. You know, you're not trying to bring in like neo-Nazi shit or anything. Like, you yourself, I feel, are, you know, just a very traditional individual, and you aren't necessarily someone who goes out of your way to speak unless it's about something that needs to change. I feel like y'all could be the change, and we have been consistently getting this message. I also feel like on the flip side, if we're talking about like a grand scale, right? Maybe some of you are like some sort of figures in the public, like government figures or officials, or I don't know. I'm kind of doubtful of that, but you never know. Like, I don't I would doubt a government official would ever listen to my podcast. I feel like it's too woo-woo for that alley, but you never know with people these days. This could be you, and maybe, you know, you're choosing the higher road, and you don't know what's going to come out on the other side, but I can promise you, everything's going to be okay. These are cycles that have needed to end for a long time. We all need collective healing. I think I will end it there. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and please be gentle on yourselves during this time, because I know that, you know, it feels like everywhere, all over the world, globally, and it's a very politically charged time. And with the circumstances, that is highly understandable. Even so, I guess I'm here to remind you that your want and your need to live a stable life, because I feel like that's, you know, I feel like not a lot of you are asking for a lot. But, like, that's coming, and you deserve that. And you're not necessarily veering too far off from, you know, I guess one's idea of how, you know, traditional lives should be led. But at the same time, I don't know, like, I feel like just because you don't follow, like, maybe Christian values or a rhetoric that is consistently being shoved down your throat, such as, you know, celebrating this guy who would go around campuses arguing with kids. I don't want to do that. I know many don't want to do that. That's okay. You don't have to celebrate someone like that. Not only that, but if we're talking on a more personal scale, if this is a person that is just in your life, fuck labels, fuck, you know, if it's family, fuck that blood is thicker than water bullshit, like, do what's right for you and keep yourself safe. Self-care is definitely needed right now. Self-preservation is key, but if you do go into hermit mode, please do not fully go into hiding, as you are so important. You still have a purpose here, and all of this going on right now is fucking crazy. You know, I'm not even gonna just say a distraction. It feels fucking crazy, but you know, it's happening, and everything has to break down in order for us to even be able to start to rebuild. Alright, by all that is divine, I will now close and exit this reading. Thank you for illuminating the path and for not retreating. Our session has come to an end. This advice I shall not bend. Please be safe on your path and keep me safe in the aftermath. Blessed be. And so it be like that sometimes. Y'all, everything is going to be okay, and I know that, like, you're hurting, and a lot of us, you know, may be scared, and, you know, there's a lot going on, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you for how you're feeling, but I am going to consistently show up to hold your hand and remind you that, you know, you're a decent individual, and there's a lot of fucked up shit in the world. I get that, but I promise you it is going to be okay, And I'm here to remind you of the blessings you will collect along the way, as well as of your own magic. Because you, my friend, yes, we are all human, but you have your own magic about you, and that's beautiful. I am going to leave it there. I hope y'all have a beautiful rest of your day, week, year, whatever. Just be safe and be gentle on yourselves. Pot Green out.